very, just because it's water and sprinkler.
What is your reasoning behind not wanting to sand a weld?
Just because it's not how it was left. So, like, I got our inspector in Maryland the second time we were up there because he kept calling. He got mad, and because we weren't willing to do his work for him. There's 6 welders on a 2.5 mile long spread, and he wanted us to keep his weld count. He wanted us to tell him where we were, and I was like, you can see where we fucking are, man. Like, follow us out of the yard when we leave in the morning. Most days we don't leave the yard.
Yeah.
Like, all our work was right there. If we leave, follow. Like, I shouldn't even have to walk over and tell you. I mean, Mark,
Yeah.
he's waiting at the gate. Like, as soon as he sees trucks, he cuts people off. I'm like, that's kind of how that works. And I knew his chief for a while. I knew his chief before we got out there. And his 2 main slip-ups, he asked me to sand a weld that was x-ray for a high button, because he was just being a shithead. I said, nope.
Yeah, it's a repair at that point.
Unless you want to reshoot it. Well, I don't need to reshoot it. It's already good. Just sand it. I was like, nope. And my helper's calling the chief over, and he got over there. He's like, what's going on? And he was like, well, what are you doing here? And he said, I was driving by and seen you guys. What are we doing? We need to sand that button down. He looks in and goes, it's already been shot. He said, you want to sand it down? I said, no, it's already been shot. It's good. He's digging for personal preference at this point. And he goes, you know what? Sand it down. Let's get x-ray back over here. And the inspector's like, fine. He goes, oh, no, because that shot's coming out of your check. Whoa. Those guys are like $5,000 a day. He goes, yeah, it's probably coming out 2 of your checks.
Yeah.
Well, I said, I'm not doing this. Andy's running a good crew. They're all good welders. He said, I get any more of this bullshit, you're not going to work here anymore. The poor guy, he's just steaming. And then the very next morning, he called me princess or cupcake at the safety meeting. Not well. I didn't even mess around with his chief, old Gordon. He was just hanging his head. And I called Gulf Interstate. And I was like, hey, this is what happened. There's 24 guys on this crew that all tell you that that's what was said, and I'm not having it. I'm not going to have somebody belittle me in front of my entire crew and everybody out here like that. It's highly offensive. Yeah.
When I talked to you about that low cap repair on the last job, so when he called it the low cap, I pulled off from it because he would never show up. The inspector would. I come back, it's a repair. And he called it a repair because it was VT. It failed the VT. Yeah. He's like, well, this is a repair on you. He's like, well, I need you to go ahead and weld on it. You sure? He's like, yeah. Like, he's there, the 2 head mofos from the gas company. He was showing off in front of the gas company is what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I welded it, brushed it off. He's like, cool. I was like, you realize that's a cutout now? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, that would just repair without a repair procedure and without a qualified repair welder.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it wasn't repaired. Yeah. That was a completed weld that I just welded and grinded on.
Yeah. That's the problem at Excel. They've never had a repair procedure. They've never qualified welders to a repair procedure.
Really?
And they're scared to death about all their other stuff. And that's what we were doing when I left, was writing our procedures out. And we were doing a through bead, and 2 partial depth repairs. Because we have cellulose and low high split procedures, but we didn't have an in-service procedure either. And that was the whole thing. I said, you guys keep worrying about this compliance and all these federal regulations. The reality is, this doesn't matter on your distribution system, but every repair you've ever made on your high pressure system is not valid. No. Like, I'm telling you, and I showed them, and they kept kind of,
What'd they do?
They still don't have them written yet. They're trying to get them wrote, but it's like, I don't know, $125,000.
Yeah.
And I kept telling them, I said, that, like, you guys got to realize the one thing I dislike about this job is the pay. And I've offered to write your procedures for a partial smidgen of what you're going to pay to have them rewrote.
Yeah, they at least need something.
And I said, you guys are just, well. I said, so you know what? buy into that consortium. There's a big group that does procedure stuff, and that like they do them very general for like any and every gas company. So you just buy into it, and then they hand them over to you.
Mm-hmm.
But all they were wanting to sell was the in-service stuff. It's like, you guys need everything.
Yeah.
You need a total deal. Well, Michigan, again, is the problem because you have to write an entirely separate set for Michigan. And
So you have your federal and your state.
And they're just weird. And when they came back with it was originally like 30 some odd thousand, and they came back at that at 120 something or 150 something thousand for basically 9 welding procedures.
You would have done it a whole lot cheaper.
That's what I told him. I said, like I did them for Navigator for free. Momentum gave me a 10K bonus for doing them.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty simple, and the thing is, our other guy, Rich, who's now the manager of that group, he can do them too, but he won't. He's been with Excel for 15 years or whatever. He's like, nope, not doing it, not touching it.
Why doesn't he want to do it?
Because he's been there long enough to know better. And he kept telling me, don't do it. And I said, I'm going to do it and take their money and walk away from it. I said, you got to realize that all my procedures that have been tested and qualified were tested and qualified by Roger Howell. And his name's on everything. Everything.
Yeah.
All you're doing is putting a new logo on it. And I said, nothing's ever going to go back on Roger Howell. Like anybody knows that guy would stay way clear of it. Because everything's covered all the way. And I said, that's all you need is the tested part of the procedures, the qualification part of those procedures. All you really need. I said, that stuff's easy.
So, when you write the procedure, that doesn't mean that you're the one who's doing the destructive testing. That's two different. Who is the stamp?
To be valid, you have to run it through a destructive test, and they have to do all of it. Sharpie V, they do the whole gamut. So, I stamp it for the written and the weld map, like what you were asking about and all that stuff. I stamp all that. Then you have a guy like Roger that stamps the whole process because he'll review mine and reviews the testing lab.
So Roger stamps the PQR and you stamp the WPS. So the PQR should have 2 stamps on it?
It doesn't have to, but usually it does. And that's the deal, like the outfit that tested Todd and Ryan, they did everything wholesale in-house.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because that's, they have all the stuff to do that.
Right.
And they test it for other folks, but...
Do they keep the destructive samples? Like, how's there a record for that?
Yeah, they have them, and then you get photographic of everything. So they'll show you, you'll have all the bends, you'll have the test, you'll have like the digital copy of the Sharpie, like a macro view of where they took all the hardness samples and the HAZ.
So they do have to keep a record of that then. Well, how do they do it on our jobs when sometimes I guess they record the record before we toss the straps. Yeah. So there's still a record there without the physical strap.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep all that stuff on welder tests. Some gas companies
do. Because that's not the PQR. That's just to qualify the welder.
Yep.
Okay.
And they don't have to keep the PQR forever. Like it's a pretty short time period.
So, question for you. What happens if the PQR was not destructive tested?
I don't know when it hasn't been.
It hasn't been on this.
I got all the stuff for it.
Not according to the welders that set the procedure.
Tim and I both have all the stuff for it.
I didn't know what all went there. But yeah, both welders straight up said that the PQR was never tested. It was just magged. And he said that the Scott Harvey guy that tested it didn't want to cut them apart because he had more tests and not enough pipe.
That doesn't work.
So it was destructive tested?
And those sleeves, it's weird how you test them. Like, the guy, when we tested for amperage there, and I think it was like Yale, it's the same company that tested these guys. They have this little office there. And it was, we cut 4 straps out of the side.
Out of the longitudinal?
Yeah. And then they break the back off of them to see where, to make sure you didn't go through the backing material. And then, what was the other, I don't know, something, but it breaks really funny because it's really not like just like weirdly welded together. And then the hot ends, it's the same thing. It's just this little overlap with that fillet, and all they do is crack the weld like you're breaking a tack.
So they kind of bend it back over on itself, to stretch the toe.
Huh. Okay, what's that gonna tell you? He's like, nothing ever. And that's what they do, the same thing. They mag it, and that's the majority of their process. If it passes the mag, it's good to go. Then they break, I think, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom on the ends, and there's 4 across each side seam. And it's like, ta-da. I'm going, you can't see anything in any of those. You do your side seams like you do a bend, but you can't do any roots because they're already curved.
Right.
And there's a backing strap. So you sand the bead until the backing strap falls off, and then you do a face bend on it. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. He goes, it's the only way to do it. You want me to bend that backwards? I was like, no, but shit. He goes, that's what you're up against. He said, this is the test that tells you nothing.
Yeah.
He said, the mag is your only deal. And he said, if we're, like, you could have something pretty deep and it's not going to show on the mag. He goes, if you've got something that's like just under your cap, you got a big wormhole, it'll show up.
Right.
But nothing else will. Okay.
Yeah, the longitudinal seam, I don't have any concern with that one at all. 'Cause, I mean, it's kind of hard to screw that one up.
Yeah, you think.
Not impossible, but definitely harder.
When they were doing theirs, did you notice when you get within like 6 inches of either end, them having any like magnetism issues with rods being funny or porosity?
They were spacing apart, so they weren't like making a hot tie-in together.
Well, they shouldn't even be on the same side.
On the, you talking about the longitude or the?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of the in-service well. Yeah, Ryan had some magnetism issues on his longitudinal one. Yeah, I thought you were referring to the other weld.
I never had any issues on that weld, ever. I don't know why. Because that sleeve will start carrying whatever the line's carrying. Like if we were talking about it, get real shitty, like 6 inches to the end. But coming around the hot ends of the welds, like I'm all like
Just normal, yeah.
Gotta move the hoe today.
She goes,
She's looking at me like a cow looking at
I
a
thought
pig.
she said you want to meet at 6 in the morning. I was like, that's more Sunday. She said, no, dig 6. I said, no, we're going to dig 2.
What?
Originally a blonde, and he's
I don't
got
know.
that shit brown.
Hey, you
I had a
can't.
rough evening.
Gotta do my brain.
You guys are having a battle of wits, and both of you's unarmed.
Usually I'm like, hey,